into the light.
One thing I noticed from our last Q&A.
Thank you so much for this remarkable film. This was such a joy. I've seen so much of Pat's work and Pat over the years, but I'm not exaggerating. This is a completely different way of seeing Pat Rocco's films. There's so much here. I think because we screen in public and usually through public institutions, we're able to get away with nudity, but not this much. So thank you for coming to Outfest and thank you for making this film. It's beautiful.
Thank you for having me.
How did you get through all of this film? What was your process?
Well, as you know from where you saw some of the dates there, it's been a long process. It was about 12 years of slow work. Our day jobs are making regular television for people, a lot of crazy genre stuff on Netflix and whatnot, but these are our passion projects, so we always came back to it and always with the hope of being able to finish it. Bob also was one of the editors with Nico Sagias, one of our producers and editors, who's also here today. And what an amazing job they did, because it literally was hours and hours and hours of films and footage that we shot ourselves. So,
do you have an idea of how much material came over from UCLA Film and Television Archive that you started with and then kind of whittled down? Because I don't have an idea.
Well, yeah, Pat had given us copies of all his, not all his work, but he had somewhere along the line in the 80s, I guess, transferred some of it all to digital. And so we had digital copies, so we used those sort of to narrow down what we were going to use. And then, you know, there were a number that Outfest and UCLA had already restored. Like, you'll notice that the Disneyland stuff is a little more beautiful than everything else, and that's because the work had already gone into those particular films. So we knew we wanted them, and then, you know, we knew we wanted that Silent No More film, just because it was so ahead of its time. So that was one that we had to have transferred for ourselves. So, and then the sort of ending of it was that when COVID hit and 90% of, well, all of 100% of the work went away, I just started cutting, and then Nico contacted me like a month later and said, "When are you going to finish Rocco? Let's do that now." And I was like, "Oh, I kind of just started that." So we just cut like crazy for the next 8 months and got it done.
Well, it sounds like you're a couple of the right folks for the job, because it requires, I mean, it's so voluminous, and there's so many great things you can keep in. Is there anything that you wish you could have left in and you had to take out?
Oh, but yeah.
we could have done a series.
Another movie? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, even just to show more of the ones that we did choose. But no, I mean, of course, there's more I'd like to include. It was really more, I think, of the interviews of Pat that I felt was hard to move away from. But I'm pretty happy with what's in there.
We really wanted to make it similar to presentations like he used to do when he was here, like you had seen before, or I had seen for the first time in Hawaii. And he would get up and sing. He was a showman, a singer, and he would talk about his films and then show them. I really remember sitting there and seeing Disneyland Discovery for the first time, and I cried. I was like, what's going on? And why had nobody ever told me about this? Why don't I know this man, Pat Rocco, who did all this work for our community? And so I just approached him and started talking to him and built up trust and a friendship. And we were lucky enough that he trusted us to tell his story. So.
Yeah, I cried too. But he strikes me, or struck me, but for the time that I knew about him and hearing stories, I wanted to say a special thanks because my colleague from UCLA Film and Television Archive, Todd Weiner's here, who's been instrumental in the legacy projects and
in this film.
And in this film, and working with Pat to make sure that his legacy was carried on and protected so we could continue to enjoy it. Both the things that made us laugh and the things that made us cry, but seeing queer people be politically active, that history. So thank you. but he seemed interested in passing something on. Like he was, not many filmmakers I think are aware or allow themselves that much time or even have the opportunity to think about what their films are gonna mean. So did you get a sense, were you able to get a sense from him of how he wanted the work to be portrayed? I mean, it comes across, but were there conversations around that?
Oh yes. I mean, he was really instrumental in crafting the story with us. He, as a filmmaker himself, wanted to be a part of that, and so we tried to include him all the time in those decisions. Yeah, 100%. He loved the whole process. So we just were sad that he wasn't able to be here with us. We're so lucky to have David, his partner, with us tonight. It's part of why we're so excited to come to Los Angeles, but we know that Pat would have loved this entire experience. So
I'm glad we got to see as much of David and Pat, like, because I think that's kind of one of the central parts. It really comes across. I'm so glad you had the section where you talk about the importance of, like, he's a beautiful photographer of the male nude and of people, but the love and Eros is so much a part of his work, and you beautifully portrayed that. I have one more question before we open it up to the audience. I wanted to commend you too for the subjects that you interviewed and participated in the film. So Charlie was great, creates this incredible narrative thread. Tell us how you met, there's Whitney and Cyrus. They were both great.